Philebus, one of Plato's dialogues, starts with Protarchus and Philebus proposing that what is good is to enjoy life's pleasures. Socrates will argue against this position, who thinks instead that intellect and right opinion are better pursuits than pleasure. Socrates begins the discussion with pleasure and notes that what is pleasurable varies per person by saying, "We say that a debauched person gets pleasure, as well as that a sober-minded person takes pleasure in his sobriety. Again, we say that a fool, though full of foolish opinions and hopes, gets pleasure, but likewise a wise man takes pleasure in his wisdom. But surely anyone who said in either case that these pleasures are like one another would rightly be regarded as a fool." Protarchus acknowledges that pleasures come from opposite things, like the things that make a fool happy might be opposite to what makes a wise person happy. But he clarifies that we are not saying that the pleasures themselves are opposed to one another, for something cannot be unlike itself, and even though pleasure has different causes, some of them opposing, the pleasure each cause produces is the same or similar. Socrates responds by saying that the pleasures can still be opposed even though they all fall under the same category of things. He gives the analogy of how there are many different colors, all of them very unlike one another, but we still call them colors. The strongest example is black and white, which are not just different but opposite. He now calls for Protarchus to determine whether there are kinds of pleasures or not, and how many there are and what sort they are. And the same set of questions applies to knowledge. Socrates then proceeds through a pair of questions that Protarchus answers. Is the good perfect or not perfect? It is not just perfect, it is in fact the most perfect thing of all. Must the good be sufficient? Certainly it is sufficient. That is the main feature that makes it superior to all else. Socrates now wants to examine very rigorously the life of pleasure and the life of knowledge to see if they can reach some verdict on them taken independently of the other. His reasoning for thinking of them distinctly is that if either of them is the good, then they would not need anything more in addition to what they already are. Socrates then asks Protarchus a series of questions to test both pleasure and knowledge as life pursuits to see if they hold up to being completely sufficient by themselves. He asks, could you, Protarchus, live your whole life by enjoying the greatest pleasures? Yes. Would you need anything else worth that so? No. So you would not need knowledge, intelligence, calculation, or things related to them? No, for if I had pleasure, I would have everything I could possibly need. And you could live your whole life enjoying the greatest pleasures? Sure, I see no reason why not. But if you only had pleasure, you would lack reason, memory, knowledge, and true opinion. And does this not mean that you would be ignorant even of the fact that you are enjoying this pleasure? Yes, that is true. But if you lack memory, would you not be unable to remember that you ever enjoyed yourself in the past? And if you lacked right judgment, would you not be able to realize that you are enjoying yourself in the present moment? And if you are unable to calculate, would you not be unable to anticipate having any pleasures in the future? And thus, would you not be living more of the life of a dumb animal rather than of a human being? Yes, life would be like this. Is such a life worth living? I am not sure what to say. I am speechless. With Socrates as the questioner and Protarchus as the one replying in each case. Socrates then turns his questions to the idea of living a life of reason. Socrates wonders whether any one of us would choose to live in possession of every kind of intelligence, reason, knowledge, and memory of all things, while having no part, neither large nor small, of pleasure or of pain, living in total insensitivity of anything of that kind. Protarchus says that this life of pure reason, just like the life of pure pleasure, is not desirable. Socrates then wonders what if we lived a life that mixes the two pursuits, whereas Protarchus restates it, a mixture of pleasure with reason and intelligence. Protarchus replies that everybody would certainly prefer this life to either of the other two, without exception. So now we have three possible lives, one of pleasure, one of intellect, and one of a mixture of both. Socrates then sums up, it is clear now that neither the life of pleasure nor the life of knowledge by itself is the good. Furthermore, since we established that creatures seek the good above all things, if anyone chooses the life just of knowledge and just of pleasure, or just of pleasure, it would be a choice made involuntarily in opposition to what is by nature truly choice worthy, from ignorance or some unfortunate necessity.